G'day YouTube, this is a video I did earlier on how to build a sort of a temporary wall or a permanent wall, non-load bearing, just to separate, well, this is my outdoor entertaining area. I'm using it to have a second lounge room for a tenant we've got in here. But basically I don't want them in our lounge room, I want them to have their own TV and everything out of our hair. So I did this. This is the frame I built. The way I did it, because that awning on the top is not quite level, I put the bottom plate and the top plate in first, which is what you can see there, the bottom piece of wood and the top piece of wood, and I screwed that into where the tiles are, but I actually went on the grout line, so I used masonry anchors into the grout line, so if I ever want to remove the wall I can just knock it down, pull the screws out and just re-grout those holes and you won't even know it was there. With the side piece on the brick I did the same thing. I drilled into the bricks, trying to drill into the mortar where I could, or a few had to go in the bricks there. The top plate, same thing, basically just screwed into that end thing at the base of the awning with some metal screws, and then I just put the vertical studs in as I went. The next thing I did before I did anything else was I hung the door. Now carpenters or whatnot might do this last. I did this first. I wanted to check everything was level. My frame was actually a bit off near the end of where I put a few studs in with the wrong length, so what I did was I just cut that stud along the doorway and just moved that back and just straightened the doorway and fixed it there, so that it was slightly not level near the doorway there, but I was able to fix it at that end stud before I sheeted the wall. It doesn't really matter for what I'm doing. If you were doing this in a house, unless it's load bearing, it's really not going to be a problem. If it's slightly not level on one side, you can just fix it like that. So what I did is I hung the door, and then I had to actually make the door jamb because I was using double thickness gyprock on one side for soundproofing. So I made the door jamb from scratch rather than bought. This is the sheeting I did on the first bit of sheeting. There's actually another bit of sheeting to go over this. You just use stud adhesive in between where you're going to be screwing the gyprock to the pine studs. I wasn't too fussy at this stage because I was sheeting over the top of this again for soundproofing. I did, though, where you can see through the sheeting, I did plaster that so there was no gap. This is the plastering. This is where it starts to get a bit trickier. You've got to fill all the cracks with the gyprock bigger than 3 mil. Is it 2 or 3 mil? So just plaster it all flat first. Then you've got to use stuff called joining tape. And there's 2 types of joining tape you can use. Well, actually there's 3. There's the mesh tape, which I wouldn't recommend because it is harder to plaster over and doesn't look as good. And there's 2 types of paper tape. One is self-adhesive and one isn't, which has to be bedded in. What bedding in is it's using joining compound to stick the tape to the gap in between the 2 sheets of gyprock to stop cracking. I wouldn't recommend doing it this way unless you've done it a lot. It's something that's sort of in a professional domain. I just use, I mean, you can use mesh tape if it's a small wall, if you're using it in the joint itself on the gyprock, if it's a recessed joint. Otherwise, the best thing is just to use adhesive tape, which you can buy cheaply off eBay. And what you have to do with that, the trick to get that to work properly is when you put your first coat on to fill all those cracks and get it flat, make sure it's nice and dry first, completely dry before you put the self-adhesive tape on. And how that works is you wet it with water, put it on and then dry it off completely, and then you put your 2 coats or 3 coats of plaster straight over the top of that, like you can see here, and you get it nice and flat in all the joints. What you'll eventually do is block sand it with fine sandpaper, get it nice and don't hand sand it, must be block sanded. The reason you block sand, use a sanding block, get a fairly big one, is because if you hand sand and then you've got light coming, it's more if you've got light coming along the wall, you'll see those hand marks where you've sanded, just like on a car if you've ever done any automotive stuff. So you block sand, get it nice and flat, get all the dust off, and then you use a sealer undercoat over the top of it to seal it all first. Then you just put your 2 coats of low sheen or flat or whatever you want to use, usually low sheen, on the wall. Here's the finished product anyway. You can see there the trim's been nailed on and glossed, obviously undercoat first. This is the finished room. I had some lights on the wall, I pulled them off. I'm not going to put lights on the wall. On that inside edge against the bricks there, you can't see it, just in there, there's actually a plastic strip which I've bought and put hard against the bricks and slid the gyprock into that, so it's a nice straight edge. You can see there the block sanding, well, that's done. It's a nice flat wall, and that's the plastic strip there I was telling you about.